Seeing as how my last two reviews are Metroid games, I think I'll go in a different direction with this one. Go for something bold, something original, something daring. That's why today my review will be a Metroidvania game. I know, it's such a 180 that you feel like the Exorcist girl, but bear with me for a moment. This particular game was released in 2013 and is based on the Mexican holiday, the Day of the Dead. That's right, it's time to put on your masks and prepare to uppercut through the land of the dead as I review Guacamelee, the Super Turbo Championship Edition. The gameplay can best be described as a hybrid of Metroidvania and beat-em-up since your abilities are naturally tied to wrestling. You actually start out as the humble Juan with no special abilities whatsoever. Soon enough, you find yourself in the land of the dead where you acquire a luchador mask, transforming you into one. Your basic abilities are punch attacks, the ability to grab and throw, and the ability to dodge or even phase through enemies by rolling. Your first real ability is the Rooster Uppercut that you acquire from a Chuzo statue, which is definitely in no way similar to Chozo statues. It allows you to reach higher ground and smash through red blocks. It's very handy for not just getting around but also in combat since it's quick to use and can stumble enemies. The next thing you get is All-Max Headbutt, an attack where you have to stand still and it breaks yellow blocks. Its effectiveness in combat is essentially a charged power move, so it can cut through tougher opponents. The next move you get after that is the Goat Jump, the creatively named Wall Jump. This one obviously isn't as useful in combat since it's purely a Metroidvania move to get up places with. After that is the Frog Slam, slamming down from above and breaking green statues as well as enemies. At one point you're actually cursed into chicken form and only have a weak pecking attack. This becomes pretty tense until you can get back to normal. After that though, you can transform anytime you want and essentially serves the purpose of morph balling to get into tight spaces. Later on in the game you finally gain dimensional swapping to go between the land of the living and the land of the dead anytime you want. Prior to that you had to use portals, essentially making it like a non-damaging variant of the light-dark ether dynamic from Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. You actually do get a double jump later on in the game, which I suppose makes it a triple jump of sorts when combined with the uppercut. You then get the dashing derp derp. Dashing sideways can be handy in combat and you need it to smash blue blocks with. One really nifty move is the Goat Climb. However, despite the name, it's actually a run, as in you run straight up the wall. Screw you, gravity, I'm a mother-loving luchador. Goat Fly is even more physics-defying, allowing you to charge straight forward into the air from a certain height elevation until you hit something. As if all that still wasn't enough, you gain the ability to go intenso for brief periods by charging up a meter. Your attacks become supercharged and you break through any shield with your mighty fist. You can also buy optional moves, but they're obviously not required in a Metroidvania sense. They're obviously there to make the beat-em-up side of things easier. You can also buy health and stamina upgrades, stamina being the bars you can use to perform moves like the uppercut with. They're in chunks like Zelda heart pieces, adding a new rung once completely filled. You can also find health and stamina upgrades along the game world Metroidvania style, and let me tell you, some of them can be very hard to acquire. Fortunately, many of them can be much easier to acquire by waiting until after you've obtained moves later on. The dimension shift in particular makes some of it feel like cheating. One nifty thing you can also do is unlock costumes with varying effects like the chicken suit replenishing health. Naturally, in Metroidvania fashion, you have a fast travel system. In this case, you find Olmec heads that will take you to any other one you found. Typical mechanics right there, but it's nonetheless appreciated if you missed anything. Your main foes, of course, are the skeleton warriors from the land of the dead. Recruited by the big bad Carlos Calaca, they attack in a variety of ways. Green skeletons are the most basic of mooks, not especially threatening. Yellow ones are more flexible, they're able to dodge attacks, so you better take them more seriously. Red ones will pelt you with bones from a distance, best to take these ones out ASAP. Giants can dish out a lot of damage, but they have to rest for extended periods, so take advantage to dish out punishment. Beatboxers are fairly dangerous because they attack with 4 arms and you can't just dodge roll through them. You'll have to avoid them outright to avoid being damaged. You've also got an assortment of other enemies such as little Alexes that hop around and swing at you, and cacti enemies you have to grab the projectiles up to damage. That's not even getting into enemies that have colored shields requiring the right move, and void versions that teleport around the arena. You even have self-destruct enemies that you have to quickly kill or else they'll damage you even if you're nowhere near them. Armadillos are self-explanatory, spiked and roll around. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of this enemy lineup, so let's get into the bosses now. Elabrije isn't so much a boss fight as an escape sequence. You beat him in Mario fashion with an axe to the bridge. Ishtabai is the first real boss fight, often teleporting around and launching area of effect attacks. Punishing her with the uppercut and smacking her around is your best bet, but she'll gain more attacks near the end like toxic rain clouds, colored shields, and doppelgangers. Flameface is a delightful little fellow, having encountered the luchador before. Now having bullets, he likes to summon enemies, roll around, shoot at you, and attack with lava. It took me longer than I care to admit to realize that lava in one realm is harmless water in the other. Keep up the punishment until he's down for the count. The next boss is El Trio de la Muerte, and exclusive to the Super Turbo Championship Edition, that attacks mainly with musical notes. They employ the typical fight shields from time to time, nothing you can't smash through. They'll also summon green skeletons at you later on that you have to toss up at them to do damage. As one last hurrah, they stack into a giant pillar Castlevania style, and you really have to dodge their lasers of death. This next one is actually a long time coming. Jaguar Javier, Panther Warrior. Obviously, he's the honorable warrior type, and he employs the expected colored shields in shifting through the two lands. He mainly attacks with his club, sometimes switching it up and charging at you. Considering how late in the game it is that you have to fight him, I actually thought he was pretty easy. Perhaps it was intentional to show Juan's growth as a character. Finally, you've got Kalaka himself. Phase 1 consists of him teleporting around and striking at you from various corners, forcing you to be fast to get through his colored shield. Get through that and it's time for Phase 2, Ultimate Kalaka. Well, it's more like question mark times 6 Kalaka, but let's face it, Ultimate Kalaka sounds cooler. This ultimate demon from hell attacks with a variety of moves, mainly lasers raining down fireballs and ground waves. You really have to bring the punishment to survive this one. It's a fittingly tough final boss, but it's not an unfair one. It's very pattern-driven, and he has tells for absolutely everything he does. With a bit of trial and error to know what attack comes with what tell, you can best him. In addition to enemies, you've got a variety of obstacles you gotta deal with. The most basic is thorns you have to roll through, usually tied in with jumping and other things. Before you get the dimensional shift, the game relies a lot on portals suspended in the air to require tricky maneuvers, especially to get upgrades. The game will also have walls purely in one dimension or the other to increase the trickiness with. You often have to slide down walls and wall jump and roll in a variety of other things. There are even platforms that flip over and have spikes on one end. The game isn't afraid to really make you master platforming. As I mentioned with Flame Face, there are a number of liquid hazards too. Green Slime is the least threatening, it just teleports you back to the nearest solid ground. Lava knocks you around while dealing damage, but what you really have to worry about is buzzsaws because they instantly kill you, returning you to a checkpoint. I should also mention that the checkpoints also serve as the stores that you can buy things from. All in all, Guacamelee is a very entertaining Metroidvania. The beat-em-up melee moves aspect gives it a unique flavor from others in the genre, and some of the platforming can be very challenging. It's very fun to play as long as you don't expect the game to go easy on you. If you haven't figured it out by now, this is a game that doesn't take itself particularly seriously. Our story follows a humble farmer named Juan off to meet up with his childhood friend and daughter of the mother-friggin' president Lupita on Day of the Dead. Of course, tragedy strikes when Carlos Kalaka strikes the village. Defying the usual trope, Carlos kills Juan as he's kidnapping Lupita. And with that, our hero is dead and the game is over. Just kidding. Juan finds himself in the land of the dead and the luchador Tostada gives him a mask. He transforms into a powerful luchador and is sent back into the world of the living. After saving Frey from some boned skulls, Juan must set out through the forest to stop Carlos from sacrificing Lupita. He finds a Chuzo statue, definitely completely different from Chozo statues, even though they also contain items. Oi Shiva, the owner of the statue, isn't very pleased that you broke it. He's an old man who for some reason takes on the form of a goat at will. So basically he's the old hermit you learn new moves from and humorously berates you for breaking his statues. Making his way to Santa Luchita, Juan must follow the trail into the Temple of Rain. There you had to stop a ritual, but you're too late and Carlos is already gone. You're greeted by Ishtabai, who decides to flirt with Juan a bit before leaving. Clearly Carlos doesn't know how to satisfy a girl. In any case, after gaining the goat jump and fleeing Alabrije, Juan heads to Desierto Caliente. After meeting Flameface in a bar, the man cursed to have a face forever ablaze, Juan later learns the Frog Slam. Juan makes to Lupita, but Carlos turns him into a chicken. Well, there's not exactly much you can do in chicken form, the game's over. Nah, Carlos just has to make it past some dangers, wherein the devil himself, who Carlos also cursed into a chicken form, teaches you how to turn back into human form. Confronting and besting Ishtabai and Pueblucho, she explains that Carlos was a skilled Ta-Re-Dio until he broke his arm the night before a competition. He made a deal with the devil in exchange for his soul, but before he could claim his trophy, he was stripped of his flesh and sent to the world of the dead. Enraged, Carlos challenged the devil to a cockfight and used Ishtabai to turn him into a chicken. Thus, Carlos set out to merge the world of the dead with the world of the living to enslave all of mankind. Ishtabai actually turns on Carlos and gives Juan the power to shift between worlds. In Tule Tree, Juan breaks a Chuzu statue and gains nothing. So he broke another of the goat's prize statues for nothing. Youch. Don't feel too bad for Goatman though, he did this on purpose as a joke. Reaching the Temple of War, Juan must get to the observatory to stop the ceremony. It's also here that Juan learns the dashing Derp Derp, and yes, that's really the name. There, Juan is turned into a chicken again and must confront Flameface. Flameface prepares to tell him all about his gripping, tragic backstory, but then Juan turns back to normal and uppercuts him. After besting Flameface, and after Flameface has one last drink before dying, Juan learns to goat climb. Exclusive to the Super Turbo Championship Edition is a volcano you must make your way through. You learn that the minions you've been fighting have been manufactured by the band trio. Carlos berates them for not picking up the pace, and they're only doing this with the promise of getting back their fourth member, Pedro. Can't say I blame them, I'd vote for Pedro. Not gonna lie, the stretch goal joke with the miniature Carlos was pretty funny. After beating this band trio, Juan moves on to Sierra Manta. Challenging and besting Jaguar Javier, it's revealed that Carlos forced Javier to work for him by threatening the life of his master. Javier was actually foreshadowed early on in the game. I actually figured he'd be the first boss, but it's probably more fitting that he'd be the second to the last. After learning the goat fly, only one destination remains, the Great Temple. Fighting through some of the toughest challenges the game has to offer, Juan has to confront Carlos once and for all. While Juan does overcome him, it's too late and the Black Sun completes the ritual, transforming Carlos into a massive monster. Thus, the fight for the land of the living is underway! Juan may have bested this souped-up Carlos and saved the world, but sadly he lost his beloved Lupita in the process. I must say, the story is quite involved. It's got a lot of cheese, but it also has some drama mixed in there too. It's a good mix, and I had an enjoyable time throughout it. It's a very enjoyable plot if you're looking for something more comedic that doesn't take itself too seriously. What can I honestly say about the presentation, other than the fact that I absolutely love it? The visual aesthetic is obviously a very simplistic styled cartoony affair, and it utilizes that very well. The animation is very fluid, the environments are rich with heavy stylized detail, and there's just enough bloom in places to look beautiful without becoming overbearing. The environments are nicely varied, from the towns to swamp environments, as well as desert and snow and everything in between. It's also interesting to see the Land of the Dead versions of areas, which is made easier once you gain the ability to shift through them at will. You can tell it's very Luchador and Day of the Dead inspired, with a persistent theme of skeletons and masks. The game is also fun of humorous cameos, especially to Metroid with the Chuzo statues. It even has a Metroid statue, which is a nice touch. Then there's the homages to Zelda with the heart and stamina chunks, and to Mario with the axe bridge. Unfortunately, your princess is in another castle. The music is very nice to listen to and really puts you in the Luchador spirit. One interesting thing to note is that the Day of the Dead versions of areas use the same music, but it's heavily muffled. It sort of makes it feel like an eerier version, which of course fits in very well with the whole idea of it being the Land of the Dead. The different enemy types likewise show enough personality in their animations that they stick out from one another. Ultimately, Guacamelee has a very appealing presentation. It complements the humorous writing and the engaging gameplay very well, resulting in a game that's very fun to play and just to experience as a whole. Guacamelee from top to bottom actually surprised me. I'm used to serious-minded Metroidvania like, of course, Metroid and Castlevania, but even others like Axiom Verge. Seeing such a comedic game that's full of referential humor to things like other games and even things like stretch goals is quite a treat. Combine that with a beat-em-up hybrid Metroidvania-style gameplay, and Guacamelee provides a unique experience that's not really like any other Metroidvania I've played. It also helps that it's completely coated in Luchador and Day of the Dead culture. Simply put, Guacamelee is a quite fun game that can really put your skills to the test while being very funny all the same. Give it a try if you like Metroidvania, want a good challenge, and simultaneously something to have a good laugh at. I can tell you this, I had a great time even as I was getting my ass handed to me. This has been my review of Guacamelee. Thank you so much for tuning in with me. Now put on your mask and go uppercut some boneheads, Luchador champion!